Okay, I just want to start by saying thank you so much for taking the time out to sit down and chat with me. I suppose we should start right at the beginning. How did you sort of discover theatre? How did your love for theatre begin?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me today, Rhys. It all began with my parents. In
Mm,
our home, right outside of New York City, were all of the old school show albums playing.
mm.
And I fell in love with the theater because it was seeping into my bone marrow without me even asking for it. And that's where it really began. And I also began singing at a very young age as well, Rhys.
And so how did you go from sort of enjoying shows then to being sort of more the technical side, the directing, the writing? How did that transition happen?
Well, it began with the performing. I started performing professionally with my twin brother at about 9, 10 years old. We were
Mm,
singing jingles. We were singing a good amount of jingles in New York City, recording them for, national commercials and whatnot, some of which you can still see on the YouTube, but or here rather, because you can't really see us. And it was from there, I performed in all the elementary school, middle school, high school productions. I went to Boston College,
mhm,
where I continued my studies in theater and got to perform a bunch there as well. But it was really until I took a class, a directing class at college, Rhys,
mm,
where there was something about in that class, in learning about what a director actually did, it
mm,
put a name to all of my interests, which was always to be at 30,000 feet. My favorite theater going experiences growing up, when my parents would take me to the city to see Broadway shows, was
mm,
sitting in the mezzanine. And I realized after taking that directing class in college that I literally and figuratively enjoyed most
mm,
being at 30,000 feet and watching how the chess pieces
mm,
were being moved
mm.
around the stage.
Oh. And so from there, then you're now directing White Rose the musical. So how did that come to be? How did that opportunity arise?
Well, the White Rose the musical opportunity came about because, as you can probably tell from, my little bio, is I'm usually associated with shows that I'm either a co-creator of or a co-writer
Mhm.
of. But White Rose is a show that came across my desk
Mm,
as an opportunity to come in and interview with the creative team. The creative team meaning the composer,
mm,
lyricist, book writer, and it came about just like that, a meeting. And it
mm,
was Rose was a story that I'd never heard of, Reese. And I was curious as to why many Americans that I speak with, even those who are history buffs, had never heard about this, excuse my French, badass group of
mm,
university students during Nazi Germany who spoke truth to power, who wrote leaflets, copied them, and distributed them. And I felt that it was an unfortunate, timely story, but also one that I wanted to be a part of because I knew of so many people that
mm,
didn't know about this heroic group of young people that I think many young people and also the youth and all of us who are activists could relate to.
mm. And obviously now the album is now available on Spotify. So what was it like putting the recording together and be a part of that process of recording and distributing?
Well, White Rose the musical isn't totally online quite yet, but there are two songs that
Okay.
you can find. But we will be releasing the album through the incredible Yellow Sound label, hopefully by the end of May. So we
Hmm.
have two songs out there that I'm really excited about. And it was a really beautiful process to be working with Michael Kreuter at Yellow Sound label, my friend Tony and Grammy Award winner Van Deen, who has produced many albums for Center Stage Records, Broadway Records, and my friend Charlie Rosen, Tony and Grammy Award winning orchestrator. White
Mm,
Rose and recording it just a few weeks before our closing, which was always a limited run off
mm,
Broadway. A really beautiful experience to witness this cast that had already performed a few months of the
mm,
show to be able for them to have this and for all of us to have this down as not only remembrance of a production, but also to be the first
mm,
recording this, eventually, obviously, the whole world being able to listen to it.
mm. And obviously you said it's come at the end of the run, so you've already got that bit of following. But what has the feedback been like from the two songs that are now released?
It's been really positive. I mean, look at Natalie Bryce's score with Brian's lyrics are really really something that the old school in my heart
Mm,
feels an affinity for. You know, going back to those show albums that my parents played, it was a lot of Rodgers and Hammerstein, Jerry Herman, the
mm,
songs that we could remember and hum and tap our feet to. And I feel like what Natalie has done with this kind of pop rock punk feel is she's created melodies that are memorable. And also Brian, who is an amazing lyricist, old school lyric writer, in
mm.
these lyrics that are so profound. So the whole White Rose experience was incredible, but not ending. I mean, I can tell you, Rhys, without getting too specifically, that in addition to the album that will be fully released at the end of May, we do have sights on what I'm calling White Rose 2.0 of the next incarnation of the production.
Wow, fantastic. And so, from a show that you've kind of joined onto to something that's kind of your own creature, your own baby. So what is Figaro the musical?
I never thought you'd ask, Rhys. Uh, Set in the mid 1800s Italy, Figaro, an original musical, is a hauntingly beautiful tale of Sienna, a young woman who dreams of singing but feels imprisoned by her life on her father's farm.
Hmm.
When a chance encounter with two young orphans thrusts her into the life of a traveling performer, she meets the handsome Figaro, who promises to make all her dreams come true, but there's always a price to fame. It's part love story, part mystery. Sienna's journey to discover herself and to live the life she always wanted is fraught with twists and turns until it culminates in a moment that will change the course of her life forever. Can you tell, Rhys, that I've said that quite a few times?
So where did the idea come from? Where did that is that something you come up with? Is it based on is it influenced by anything? Where did that come from?
You know, a lot of people have been asking, and it's a great question because Figaro obviously is a known IP. You know, we
Hmm.
have Figaro Barber of Seville and many incarnations of the opera and the story, but this is a totally original idea. It basically stems from at the height of the pandemic, April 2020, Reese. I was feeling like a lot of creatives creatively stifled. So I went
Hmm.
online and was just looking for inspiration. And I came across the profile of Ashley Jana, who is very well known in sectors for her
Hmm.
pop music writing. But there was something, Reese, about her pop writing that really, for me, were almost like they were like little stories. And
Hmm.
I said, you know what? I'm going to be creepy and go into her DMs and just start a conversation.
Hmm.
And it began. And I asked her point blank, have you ever thought about writing a musical? And she said, oh my goodness, it's all I've ever wanted to do.
Oh.
And so Reese, from there, over a 2 year period, once a week, we would meet on Zoom. We would pitch around story ideas. She'd go
Hmm.
away, write a song or two, come back, we would talk. We would talk about story. She'd go away, write a song. And Reese, this this incredible badass woman of the planet is
Hmm.
such a singular talent, as people can listen to on our world premiere recording, which is out. And the name of the show came about the fact I asked her if she ever wrote a song for a musical.
Hmm.
And she said, well, it's really funny you should mention that. I have a song that I wrote a few years ago called Figaro, and I would love to share it with you.
Hmm.
And Reese, honestly, like that was the pilot light that lit
Yeah.
the whole thing. And that's where the name came about. That it has nothing to do with anything IP, but that there was something about this name that, you know, was very showmanship. And so we just kind of
Hmm.
stuck with it.
And so what was the writing process on your end then, the sort of coming up with the story? What was that sort of journey, that process like?
You know what it was? I saw when I'm a very visual writer and director, and Ashley writes these melodies, Reese, as you know, you can tell from listening, that are so cinematic, and especially with her lyrics as well. They're true poetry and storytelling. When I listened to the first song, I couldn't get out of my head a woman downstage center with a body at her feet with this like flowing red train that looked like it went on for infinity. And that's where the image began.
Hmm.
And so when Ashley would then go away and write the next song, she'd come back, we'd talk about story, and I'd be like, you know, Ashley, I'm thinking now the father might come in and interrupt whatever dreamscape she's in. And we
Hmm.
kind of like go back in time in order then to move forward. And so Figaro became the framing device of our show.
Hmm.
And to finally answer your question, the story was kind of just written piecemeal, but
Mm.
sometimes we would like do a few songs
Yeah.
and then we'd go back and almost sandpaper it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh wow, amazing. And obviously now you're preparing for the sort of West End debut. What has that sort of addition been like to the journey of this show?
It's been amazing, Rhys. And look, I mention it to within master classes that I talk about all the time. I tell the kids and future artists and just future anyone, three main things, to remain kind, to remain curious, and to keep going.
Mm.
And my dear friend Van Deen of many years, I know a name I've already mentioned through White Rose, I try to also keep it in the family, call it the Italian in me. I don't know. But Van, Van introduced Ashley and I to the amazing general managers and producers at Carter Dixon McGill, who are
Mm.
having a much success over there with their staged concert presentations of, my goodness, they did Death Note, they recently did Wild About You. I know they're doing that big Pippin 50th anniversary with Alex Newell, but to really use this amazing model of these staged concerts is almost proof of
Mm.
concept before moving forward
Yeah.
to the full commercial run. So working with everyone at Carter Dixon McGill and the entire London team. Special shout out also to the American team here, lead producer Michael Lehman, and also co-producer Andrew Burns. It really has been an amazing collaboration, not only with Van as the executive producer of the show in London, but also as a producer of the album, along with Mia Maravis. She's
Mm.
also a producer on the album. I'm always trying to give out shout out to everyone. So excuse the names
This
coming
is
out, but I think it's important to give credit where credit is due.
totally. And so, for those who haven't sort of created a West End debut musical before, how do you go about getting that sort of gig of it's opening on the West End? How did that sort of come to be?
Well, you mentioned a great word, how. And for me, in my time, it's always letting go of it.
Mm.
Look at,
Okay.
I've been in the situation where I'm listening or watching to something like this, and I'm watching creators or directors making their Broadway debut or West End debut. And, all I could do when listening and watching was, how did that happen? I want that. And it's really letting go of the how. And
Mm.
honestly, remaining kind, staying curious, and keep going.
Mm.
And when Ashley and I were writing this, though, Rhys, we always felt in our gut for some reason that it would begin on the stage in London. I think maybe because of its throwback 80s and 90s epic musical feel, or I don't know. I really
Mm.
don't know. But I'm so excited that we're going to be starting in the West End with this kind of staged concert format.
Mm.
Um, we're looking at, well, we do have our dates, but I'll be general, early February 2025. But please keep a lookout for all of the socials at
Mm.
Figaro Musical, because we'll be announcing hopefully in the near future not only those specific dates, but the iconic venue it will be at, and then also obviously our incredible casting for the West
Mm.
End Bow.
Totally. And so, obviously, you've talked about both directing and writing. Is there a difference in the sort of experience of those shows? Because obviously, when you're writing, you've created something that is then translated onto stage, whereas when you're directing, you're translating something else. Do you have to switch mentally in your brain to do those two different things?
It's a really great question, Rhys. Have you done this before? My God.
A few times.
For White Rose, also, I need to do a special shout out to Jeff Laurinaitis, who is our executive producer of the album. It would not be happening without him. He was also a lead producer on the show. For White Rose, it's a great question. When I'm just directing, I look at myself as the ultimate editor.
Mm.
And when I'm directing something that I've also written, I almost have to divorce. I almost have to I know what it is. I had to come to a point where I'm like, okay, there are going to be three lanes here when I'm a
Mm.
writer and a director. That there's the lane where I'm going to have to just be the writer. There's going to be a lane at times when I have to just be the director.
Mm.
But there's also that converging line that I'm going to have to just accept living in the mess
Yeah.
of having to wear both hats. But um, with Figaro, it was something beautiful that happened in that while I was creating in writing the book and story with Ashley, I couldn't not see it. And I'll
Mm,
be the first one. There is another show that I've created with Billy Rhys, amazing composer and lyricist and book writer of Little Black Book.
mm,
We co-created, it's a badass musical about the life and times of Hollywood Madam Heidi Fleiss. People should also check out that killer album on Broadway Records. But there was something about that assignment that I always felt that a badass female needed to direct it. And
mm,
so I knew that even though I had a creation um, hand in that,
mm,
I'm the first to know when I'm best for something or not. With
mm,
Figaro, it was just in conversation with Ashley. I was like, there must have been a conversation at some point. Yeah, when I went to Ashley, I was like, Ashley, like, I really feel like I should direct this because I'm really starting to see this age. And how do you feel? And she's like, no, absolutely. So it's an interesting moment to be in, to wear the
mm.
double hat, but one that if I feel is right, I will take it. But if I don't, I am
Mm.
able and willing to relinquish it to someone else.
Oh, fabulous. And so talking about all the fabulous projects you've got coming up and things that you've got planned in the future, where can people stay up to date with you and the shows?
I never thought you'd ask. Well, I think my biggest, I started using LinkedIn during
Mm,
the pandemic. I found also a lot of like businessy type people and investors and producers, potential investors, producers around there. So you can find me with my full name on LinkedIn, Will Nunziata. I'm on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram at Will Nuns
mm,
official. And for all the White Rose, obviously it's at White Rose the musical. Figaro music, an original musical is at Figaro musical.
mm,
And yeah, you can just kind of I try to keep my cards close as much as I
mm.
can.
Josie.
I do usually put out little hints here and there of things to come. And I'm just really grateful for a lot of the artists and also fellow writers and directors around the country, across the country and around the world,
Mm,
frankly, that I've been able to be in touch with. And I'm just really excited about not only the work that I'm procuring, but seeing all of the work of especially the young artists out there who
mm,
during the pandemic, I feel really took an opportunity to look within to realize that their voice matters. So
mm,
I love being a champion of
mm.
new artists and yeah.
I know you already touched on it earlier, and I'm really glad you brought up sort of new artists there. What advice would you have then going forwards, for young creatives or new performers looking to get into the industry?
Well, in addition to my three,
Hmm.
remain kind, remain curious, and keep going. I would just say continue to work on your craft.
Mm-hmm.
We live in an age today where everyone wants to, get the success fast. I
Mm-hmm.
call it like the American Idol syndrome. Everyone wants to like win quick money, quick fame, and God bless. And a lot of these shows are great platforms. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not booing them, any of the reality competition talent shows, but I would say work on your craft, continue to work on your craft and never stop being a student.
Mm.
Uh, I guess that goes back to the remain curious, but craft, craft, craft. Just keep working at it. Keep peeling back that onion. There's always something to learn.
Mm. And I suppose that motto has worked really well for for the show of sort of reflecting and coming together and building and
I I guess when you put it like that, I never really thought about it, but I've also written a psychological horror that's winning these screenwriting contests, and I'm like, sometimes really, but I took over 2 years of master classes
Mm.
online during the pandemic of screenwriting, and it's from
Mm.
the I'm creating a sitcom right now for a big Broadway star who's also traversed into the TV world that I'll announce on our
Yeah.
next interview, Rhys, when I can. But it just came from taking those like online master classes during the pandemic
Mm.
of how to write a sitcom. And you just, so basically what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that to brag, oh, look at all these things I'm working on. It's just do the thing,
Yeah.
learn, take classes, and just do the thing. Because until you actually put pen to paper, you're not going to know what's right or wrong.
Hmm.
And what I've learned more than anything, is that the wrong is not doing it. And that right is when you're actually doing it, literally and figuratively, the writing. That there's
Mm.
no such thing as a mistake when you're just doing the thing and learning along the way.
Oh, amazing. So that's all the questions I have. I want to end the same way I started, just by saying thank you so much for taking the time out to sit down and chat with me. I will put all the links into the description so people can scroll down and click away and follow you on all the socials. But yeah, thank you so much, and I shall speak to you soon.
Rhys, thank you so much. I can't wait to talk with you soon as well.
Speak to you soon.